My name is Marin Hale. I am 71 years old, and for most of my life, I thought I had earned my place at the family table. I raised 2 children after losing my husband when I was barely more than a girl myself. I worked for decades at the school office, kept food on the table, paid every bill on time, yet on Thanksgiving night, in a room glowing with candles and laughter, I learned that none of that seemed to matter. The turkey had just been carved. Plates clinked and the air smelled of butter and cinnamon. My granddaughter, Maya, leaned close to me, whispering about how she wanted another slice of pie later. Her smile was the only thing keeping me steady. Then Trent, my daughter's boyfriend, lifted his glass of wine and chuckled. "We can't keep carrying your mother. She's a burden," he said, almost casually, as if tossing a scrap of meat to the dog. For a moment, I thought I had misheard him. I looked around the table, waiting for Dana, my daughter, to object, for Evan, my son, to say something sharp in my defense. Instead, there was only the uncomfortable scrape of a fork, a half smile, a few eyes dropping down to rolls and gravy. The silence burned worse than the words. I placed my fork gently on the china plate. My hands were steady, though inside my chest a storm cracked wide open. Maya's hand brushed mine under the table, her eyes wide, searching my face for an answer I couldn't give her. I didn't speak. I didn't cry. I simply swallowed the heat in my throat and lowered my gaze to the keys resting on my lap. In that instant, without saying a word, I knew what I had to do. The plates were stacked high with scraps of turkey and half-finished casseroles when the laughter finally drifted into the living room. I stayed behind with Maya, rinsing dishes under the dim kitchen light. She hummed to herself, still too young to grasp what had just been said at the table. My chest ached, but I pressed my lips into a smile for her sake. "Grandma, should I wrap the pie?" she asked, her small hands fumbling with the plastic wrap. "Leave it for now, sweetheart," I told her gently. "We'll let your mother decide." Through the doorway, I could see Dana laughing politely at one of Trent's jokes, her wine glass tilting in his hand. Evan stepped outside to take a call, his back turned to the glow of the dining room. No one seemed troubled by the words still echoing in my ears. Burden, as if I were a sack of potatoes thrown across their shoulders, too heavy to carry. I dried my hands on the dish towel and steadied myself against the counter. My daughter's kitchen smelled of nutmeg and bleach. I had stood in this room countless times, helping, supporting, filling gaps no one else cared to fill. And now I was invisible, except as a weight. Maya leaned against me, warm and trusting. "Grandma, can we bake together on Sunday?" Her eyes were wide, expectant. I brushed a strand of hair from her face and kissed her forehead. "Of course, darling," I whispered, though even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. My heart twisted with the lie. When it was time to leave, I gathered my coat and scarf. Dana offered a distracted hug at the door, her arms light as feathers, her attention already back on Trent. Evan gave me a nod, promising we would catch up soon. None of them knew the storm gathering inside me. The night air was sharp, carrying the faint scent of wood smoke. I walked slowly to my car, keys cold in my palm. For 71 years I had carried others, their needs, their fears, their debts. Tonight I had been told, plain and clear, that I was nothing but a load to them. I sat behind the wheel, stared at the dark street, and made my choice. Tomorrow morning, 3 calls would set me free. Morning light slid through the blinds, painting pale stripes across my kitchen table. I hadn't slept more than an hour, but my mind was clear, sharper than it had been in years. The house was quiet except for the tick of the old wall clock. I laid out a yellow notepad, drew 3 numbers in neat order, and placed the phone beside me. My fingers hovered for a moment. Then I dialed the first. "Mr. Blake," I said when the line clicked. "It's Marin. I want to review every account." He sounded surprised. I rarely called unannounced. But within minutes, we were combing through balances, retirement funds, the municipal bonds I'd tucked away, even the modest rental property I had managed for decades. He talked about market trends and penalties, but all I cared about was mobility, liquidity, the ability to move without anyone's permission. By the time I hung up, I had set an appointment to sign documents in person that afternoon. The second call was to Miss Alvarez, my attorney. I had updated my will before, but this time I wanted more than ink on paper. "A living trust," I told her firmly. "Durable power of attorney. Healthcare directive. Everything airtight." My voice did not waver. She scheduled me for a late morning consultation, promising new drafts within a week. For the first time, I imagined my affairs standing independent of Dana's disapproval or Evan's silence. Mine alone. I breathed deeply before dialing the third number, the one that made my pulse race. The real estate office answered with a chipper greeting. "This is Harbor Realty." I asked for an agent I trusted from years back, Mr. Connors. When his familiar voice came on, I didn't waste a second. "List the house, 2-story, Maple Ridge. I want it ready by next week." There was a pause, a sharp intake of breath, then a promise to start the paperwork immediately. He would send a photographer on Monday. When the calls were done, I sat back, staring at the notepad with 3 thick check marks. The clock chimed 9, and sunlight caught on the rim of my coffee cup. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from the rush of freedom. For the first time in decades, I wasn't waiting for anyone's permission. My plan had begun, and there would be no turning back. By the weekend, the decision had settled into my bones like a quiet fire. I pulled empty boxes from the garage and lined them along the hallway. Each room carried decades of my life, photographs framed in oak, my husband's old service jacket folded neatly in a cedar chest, recipe cards faded from years of flour dust. I touched each one as though it might burn, deciding what to keep, what to let go. The kitchen echoed with the clatter of dishes as I stacked them into crates for donation. A lifetime of casseroles and pies reduced to cardboard and tape. I called Goodwill and scheduled a pickup. The man on the phone thanked me. He had no idea what it cost me to say yes. By Monday morning, movers from Cyprus showed up with clipboards and heavy boots. They walked through the rooms briskly, measuring doorways, noting furniture. I watched them with a strange calm, as if I were already a guest in this house. The for sale sign went up that afternoon, its white post sinking into the front lawn. The sight of it made my knees weaken, yet I didn't look away. At the bank, I opened a small safe deposit box, sliding in a few keepsakes, a pearl necklace my husband had given me on our 10th anniversary, a photograph of Maya with cake on her nose, and the deed that would soon be replaced by something new. I closed the metal door with a soft clang that echoed louder than I expected. Back home. I sat at the dining table where my family had once gathered for Christmas mornings. A blank envelope lay before me. I wrote Dana's name on the front, then Evan's on another. Inside, I placed only the documents my lawyer had prepared, proof of my choices, nothing more, no apologies, no accusations, just the truth. My phone buzzed, and a text from Maya lit up the screen. "Grandma, can we bake together Sunday?" My throat tightened. I stared at the glowing words until they blurred. My hands wanted to type yes, but I set the phone down, pressing it face first against the table. I whispered into the empty room. "Not this time. Darling." The silence answered me back, steady and final. The closing took place on a gray Thursday afternoon. I sat across from the buyer in a conference room that smelled faintly of ink and coffee. My attorney slid the papers toward me, page after page, each one demanding my signature. I signed with a steady hand, my name flowing in blue ink as if it had been waiting for this moment all along. When the final pen stroke was done, my lawyer gathered the stack neatly, and just like that, the house was no longer mine. Mr. McConnors handed me a small envelope with the buyer's check and took the key ring from my palm. The metal jingled softly, a farewell I hadn't rehearsed. Those keys had opened my front door for more than 40 years, kept my children safe through snowstorms and summer heat. Now they belonged to strangers. I walked out of the building lighter and lonelier all at once. That evening, I packed the last suitcase in silence, clothes folded with deliberate care, shoes wrapped in old towels, the safe deposit box receipt tucked into my wallet. On the counter lay 2 envelopes addressed to Dana and Evan, each containing the documents I had prepared. I sealed them shut, pressed them flat with my hand, and left them stacked neatly beside the fruit bowl. Before dawn the next morning, I drove myself to the airport. The streets of Maple Ridge were quiet, storefronts dark, streetlights humming. My car rolled past the old school where I had spent half my life filing records and answering phones. I whispered goodbye to no one in particular. At the terminal, I wheeled my suitcase through the crowd, heart pounding with each step. When the boarding call echoed overhead, I handed over my ticket and walked the narrow jet bridge, refusing to look back. The plane lifted into the sky, and Maple Ridge shrank beneath the clouds until it was nothing more than a patchwork of gray and green. Hours later, I opened the door to a condo in Seabrook, Florida. The air was warm and salty, the balcony overlooking a stretch of water glowing with sunset. I dropped my bag, stepped out into the breeze, and let the tears fall freely. For the first time in my life, the only weight I carried was my own, and it felt bearable. The first weeks in Seabrook passed in a blur of paperwork and sea breeze. My condo was small but bright, with pale walls that caught the afternoon sun and a balcony where pelicans glided low over the water. I furnished it with second-hand pieces, nothing fancy, just enough to feel like a home. In the quiet, I felt both liberated and unmoored, like a ship freshly cut from its dock. It didn't take long for me to see what was missing for so many here. At the community center, I watched neighbors shuffle through piles of confusing insurance forms, muttering about bills they didn't understand. Some clutched thick envelopes from hospitals. Others stared helplessly at online portals that refused to load. I recognized that look. It was the same one I had worn when facing down stacks of unpaid utilities decades earlier. So I printed a simple flyer, Harbor Lane Advising, helping seniors navigate paperwork and peace of mind. I tacked it on the bulletin board near the bingo schedule, left a few copies at the church entrance, and waited. Within a week, the calls began. A retired nurse who needed help sorting Medicare statements, a widower drowning in bank notices after his wife's passing. I met them at their kitchen tables, spread out the papers, and showed them how to bring order to chaos. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest, and it grew. Soon I was meeting with directors from 2 retirement communities who wanted regular workshops. I hired a part-time assistant, a college student studying accounting, to help with filing and phone calls. Each small step stitched me more tightly into this new life. One evening, at a slow dance class at the rec hall, I met Jonah. His laugh was easy, his stories about serving as a Navy medic humble and unpolished. We danced clumsily, both of us stepping on toes, both of us laughing louder than the music. For the first time in years, I let myself imagine companionship without weight or obligation. As I walked back to my condo under the soft Florida night, I realized something startling. I was building more than a business. I was building a life that was mine, entirely mine, and no one could call it a burden. The calls began on a Sunday afternoon while I was reviewing a client's insurance forms. Dana's name flashed on my phone, over and over, until the buzzing felt like a hornet in the room. I let it ring. Minutes later, Evan tried, then again. I powered the phone down and sat in the quiet, the ceiling fan circling lazily above me. By Monday, I learned through a voicemail that Dana had gone to my old house and found strangers living there. The for sale sign was gone. The porch decorated with someone else's pumpkins. She demanded answers, her voice sharp with panic. "Where are you? How could you just leave?" That same evening, 2 uniformed officers knocked on my condo door. A welfare check, they explained. My children had reported me missing. I invited them in, offered coffee, and showed them the condo lease, my driver's license with the Florida address, the tidy folders of legal papers Miss Alvarez had prepared. They glanced at each other, nodded, and closed their notebooks. "Ma'am, you're clearly fine," one said gently. "We'll let your family know you're safe." When the door shut behind them, the silence pressed heavier than before. Safe was one word for it. Alone was another. That night, I opened my laptop to find an email waiting. The subject line read simply, "Grandma." Maya's words tumbled down the screen, shaky with spelling mistakes. "Did you leave because of me? I didn't stand up at dinner. I didn't say anything. I'm sorry if I made you feel bad. Please come back. I miss you." My hands trembled on the keyboard. I could not let her believe that. She was 12 years old, caught in a storm she hadn't created. I pulled a sheet of stationery from my desk and began to write, my pen scratching slow and deliberate. "My sweet Maya, none of this is your fault. You are the light of my days. I left because sometimes grown-ups forget that respect is not optional. I needed to remind myself of my worth, and you must always remember yours. One day soon, we'll bake again. Until then, hold on to that smile." I sealed the letter, slipped it into an envelope, and whispered her name as if she were sitting right beside me. The call came on a humid Thursday evening. Evan's number lit up first, then a request for a video conference. Against my better judgment, I accepted. His face appeared on the screen, lined with worry, and beside him was Dana, her jaw tight, eyes flicking anywhere but at me. "Mom," Evan started softly, "we just need to talk. Please." I folded my hands in my lap. "I'm listening." Dana leaned forward, her words rushing out. "I didn't mean it the way it sounded. Trent was joking. Everyone was drinking. You took it too seriously." Her voice cracked, but not with tears, more with defense, excuses layered one on top of another. I stared at her through the screen, steady as stone. "Do you understand what it feels like to be called a burden in front of your children? Your granddaughter?" Her lips pressed thin. Silence stretched until Evan cleared his throat. "Dana," he murmured. "Just hear her." I continued, my voice calm, not raised. "I have spent decades carrying you, carrying this family, doing what was needed without complaint, and in one moment, you all let me know that my years of giving add up to nothing more than dead weight." Dana's eyes brimmed then, but I did not soften. "I am not asking for pity," I said. "I am demanding respect. From now on, if anyone calls me a burden, if anyone treats me as if I'm disposable, the conversation will end. Immediately." Evan nodded slowly, his eyes shining with guilt. "You're right, Mom. We failed you." I drew a breath, steady and deliberate. "I will not move back. My life is here now. I've built something I'm proud of. But Maya," my voice trembled for the first time, Maya is welcome to visit. I'll meet her in a public place at first, with you there. Evan. If Dana can agree to treat me with dignity, maybe one day we can share a meal again. But only then. Dana wiped at her cheek. Silent. I closed the call with a quiet click, my heart pounding, my boundaries drawn sharp in the glow of the screen. For the first time in years, I felt entirely in command of my own life. A year can pass quietly when each day is steady and chosen by your own hand. In Seabrook, the seasons don't announce themselves with snow or leaf piles, but with shifting tides and the way the sun lingers longer on the water. My condo had become a true home. The walls now held photographs of smiling clients, thank you cards from neighbors, and, of course, a framed snapshot of Maya that I kept on the desk where I wrote her letters. Harbor Lane advising had grown slowly, just as I intended. We held monthly workshops at 2 retirement communities, teaching seniors how to sort insurance statements, balance accounts, and file for benefits they didn't even know they were owed. My part-time assistant kept the phone lines organized, and Jonah often helped set up chairs before class, humming old Navy tunes while I checked the projector. It wasn't an empire, it was enough, and it was mine. Jonah and I had settled into a companionship that was gentle, never demanding. We spent evenings tending to a row of succulents and one stubborn cactus on my balcony, laughing at our uneven watering habits. Some nights we walked along the pier, our hands brushing, our silence comfortable. He never asked me to explain why I left my old life. He only asked what I wanted to do tomorrow. That was enough. Then, one Friday afternoon, Maya arrived with Evan. She'd grown taller, her hair pulled back in a ponytail that bounced as she ran into my arms. The scent of her shampoo, sweet and familiar, nearly undid me. We spent the weekend baking lemon bars in my small kitchen, flour dusting the counter, just like it used to back in Maple Ridge. She laughed as she licked batter from her finger, and for a moment, the ache in my chest eased. Dana didn't come. Evan explained that she needed more time, that she was wrestling with pride and shame. I nodded, healing, like dough. Cannot be rushed. On Sunday evening, as Maya packed her bag, she pressed a folded note into my hand. In shaky handwriting, it read, "You're not a burden. You're my favorite person." I held her close, whispering against her hair, "Never let anyone make you feel less than you are." After they left, I stepped onto the balcony. The horizon glowed orange, waves brushing the shore with patient rhythm. I thought about the woman I had been at that Thanksgiving table, the silence, the sting, the decision forming like a seed in my chest. Now, standing in the salty breeze, I knew that seed had blossomed into something unshakable. Respect is not a gift someone grants you when they remember. It is not a favor handed out at their convenience. Respect is a choice, one I finally made for myself. And in that choice, I had found freedom. The sun dipped lower, and I whispered into the wind, not bitter, not broken, only certain. The best revenge had never been fury or spite. The best revenge was living a life that no one could diminish. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy these family drama and revenge stories, please subscribe and join me for more every day.